Okay, we left off on this question, the last of the ones that was no calculator, so we'll move on to the next question, and the next batch of questions where you were allowed to use a calculator. 9 and 10 were very similar problems where you're supposed to do a number plus or minus a number times the square root, and all of it divided by one more number. This first one, 9, might have been easier for people to do without a calculator, as it turns out, because a lot of people ended up getting the right answer, but there are also quite a few people who got the wrong answer, and I wonder if it was because of calculator problems. We talked a lot about different ways to use the calculator, and I'm going to show you 4 different ways in a minute here, but let's just first talk about how you would have done this problem if you hadn't had a calculator at all. With the plus minus, that means you're going to have to do 2 different problems. Let's just talk about the plus. 8 plus 3 times the square root of 4, all divided by 2. Well, I know the square root of 4. It's 2. I don't need a calculator for that. So I'm doing 8 plus 3 times 2. In other words, I'm doing 8 plus 6. Well, I know 8 plus 6 also. That's 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And if I'd done the negative version, it would have been 8 minus 3 times 2. Or in other words, 8 minus 6 divided by 2. 8 minus 6 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. But let's talk about how you would have done it with a calculator, because I don't know the square root of 3. And that would have been a real pain to have to solve without a calculator. Well, I'm going to uncover this and show that there were 4 different ways to do it. These first 2 are with the graphing calculator, and the difference between these 2 depends on whether you have the newer software or the older software. In either case, the nice thing about graphing calculators is that it lets you put in parens. And the parens allows you to deal with the fact that I've got a long polynomial up here divided by one term. And if I did this without using PEMDAS, let's just say I'd done it by hand without a calculator, I would have done 8 plus 3 times square root of 2 divided by 2. Well, 8 plus 3, it would have automatically, or I would have automatically without PEMDAS said that's 11, times the square root of 2, square root of 4, that's 2, so that's 22, divided by 2, and I end up with 11. That's not one of these answers. That's not right. You need these parens to indicate I'm going to divide everything in this first problem by 2 or in this second problem by 5. The other kind of calculator that allows for parens was those Casio calculators, but a lot of you have them if you don't have a graphing calculator. So notice this is how I would have typed it in if I'd had the old software. The old software, I put in the square root sign and it automatically gives me another paren. And I put in that I'm taking the square root of 3. Remember, I'm doing this problem here, 7 plus 4 times the square root of 3. And so I have to put in a second paren because I started everything off grouping everything together. Paren, all of this. I automatically had to close this paren that was given to me by the calculator, so I had to have a second one, then divided by 5. The newer software, in some ways it's better, in some ways it's worse. It's just what you get used to. But I noticed when I did it with the newer software, it didn't put a paren here. Instead, it made a little box, and I had to fill in that 3. And this was kind of confusing to me because to close my parens, I had to get out of the box. So I had to use a right arrow button to move over, and then I was able to put in a paren and do divided by 5. Either way, whether you use old software or new, you should have come out with this answer here, 2.7856, blah, blah, blah. And I rounded it personally at 2.786, but I was happy with people who gave me the answer 2.79. Happiest, I should say, because I actually did tell you to round to 2 decimals. Funny, I didn't even give the rounding the way I'd asked here. For that matter, I didn't here either. This should have been 7.00 and this should have been 1.00, but I didn't mark off for anybody who didn't do that because, as you can see, I made the same oversight myself. With the Casio calculators, you can put in the parens, and actually it types in very nicely. It types in just the way I would want to. 7 plus 4 times, I hit my square root sign, and type in 3, I close the parens, I do divided by 5, and I get this exact same answer. So that was great. It's those little blue calculators, the little blue solar-powered calculators that I have at the front of my desk that create the most problems because they don't have parentheses on them and they don't do PEMDAS. So I've found the only way that I can get it to calculate the right answer is almost to work from inside out. I started by taking the square root of 3. And in fact, weirdly, you've got to type in 3 square root, not square root 3. You'll get an answer for that, and then that you're going to multiply times 4, because notice, these things are being multiplied times 4. You'll get an answer for that. Then you'll add 7, because the next thing is plus or minus 7. So you're going to have to do this whole thing twice. Once I do it with plus 7, you get an answer for that. Then that answer you divide by 5. And if you do this in the order that I've just described here, you're going to end up with the same answer here, 2.78, or 2.79 rather, properly rounded. I don't care which of these 4 methods you use, as long as you come out with that answer. Even if you have one of the nicer, more expensive calculators, you're still going to have to do this twice. There's no way to get a calculator to give you 2 different answers for plus minus. So be prepared for that part too. All right, next batch of questions about polynomials. I asked you to write them in standard form, tell me the degree, the lead coefficient, and the number of terms. Well, I've already talked a bit about standard form, so I'll just show you what the standard form answer is for number 11. The degree comes from that first term. It's the exponent on the x of the first term. It's going to be 5. The lead coefficient is the number out in front of that term. In this case, it's positive 2. And the number of terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't care if you wrote 5 or you wrote polynomial. For the second one, written in standard form, it looks like that. Please notice that there's a negative out in front, that 4 is the largest degree, and there's a negative out in front of it. Like I said, its degree is going to be 4, but its lead coefficient is going to be negative 1, because that's the lead coefficient right there. And the number of terms, 1, 2, 3. Again, because I didn't get specific, I didn't care if you wrote 3 or polynomial. I actually was okay, in fact, if you wrote 4 for the number of terms, because I realized some people didn't end up combining these two 3x cubeds. And if you didn't, if you just rewrote the standard form as negative x to the 4th plus 3x to the 3rd plus another 3x to the 3rd minus 5x squared, I did not mark that off. I didn't tell you had to combine those. So if you said it was 4 terms, you would have said it was a polynomial. If you said it was 3 terms, you would have called it a trinomial. Any of those answers was fine with me. Let's move on. 13 and 14, you were asked to find the product. Finding the product in this case means distributing that 5 that's out front, or in the case of 14, distributing that 6x to everything that's inside the parens. Let's start with the first one there, question 13. That means I'm going to do 5 times 2x, and then separately, I'm going to do 5 times 3. Well, 5 times 2x, I guess I haven't written down the answer. Must be on the next slide. Let's see. Nope. 5 times 2x is 10x. 5 times 3 is 15, so your answer is going to be 10x plus 15. I guess I did write the answer on the other one. Let's put that back there. Okay, so I'm going to do 6x times 2x squared. And I'm going to do separately, I've done it in purple here, 6x times negative 5x, and finally 6x times 1. Well, I told you guys that you can reorder these terms in green or these terms in purple at your convenience. That's what the commutative property lets you do. So I'm going to put the 6 next to the 2, and the x's next to each other. Likewise here, I'm going to put the negative 5 next to the 6. Notice I put the negative number out front so that I don't confuse myself and end up thinking that I'm doing subtraction instead of multiplication. So now I can see 6 times 2 is 12, x times x squared is x cubed. Remember, you add the exponents. Here, negative 5 times 6 is negative 30. X times x is x squared. This right here is the answer I was looking for to question 14. Let's move on to question 15. All right, now you were supposed to find the product of 2 binomials. Well, that calls for the FOIL method. Remember, we talked a lot about this. Firsts are the ones in red. Outers are the ones in blue, inners are the ones in green, and lasts are the ones in purple. And so I just write those out. My firsts are x times x, my outers are x times -1, my inners are 7 times x, and my lasts are 7 times -1. Then I just do the multiplication. X times x is x squared, x times -1 is -x, and so on. And I also told you, once you do this work, you should assume that these middle two terms can be combined. And that's what I did. I went ahead and combined them, and I ended up with the x squared, but combining these, I got 6x, and in purple here, -7. And this right here is the answer I was looking for question 15. Looks like I might end up needing another video to finish off the last two, but I'll finish off this page in this video. This time I'm going to do firsts, and I'm just going to jump right ahead. It's 3x times x. Outers are 3x times 2. 3x times 2. Inners are 8 times x. 8 times x. And the last are over here, 8 times 2. Now I write those out, or multiply those out, like so. Make sure you realize this is 3x squared, and 2 times 3x is 6x. Also make sure you remember that you can combine those middle two terms, and the answer I was looking for was 3x squared plus 14x, I know this pen makes things a little hard to read, plus 16. All right, we're going to have a separate video for the last couple of slides, which are all about factoring and solving.